This story was submitted by Jacob. Have you ever felt true, unadulterated horror? Like something out of a movie or a book? A level of insanity you couldn't imagine actually existing? Well, I have a story, something that happened to me, that I'd like to share with you. This all takes place in the time span of about 15 minutes, but at 15 minutes I'll never forget. It was a calm night. The loudest thing in my house was the chirp of the crickets outside. I was reading, which is actually unusual for me, because I'm not that much of a book person. But tonight was just so peaceful, I decided, what the hell? Why not? My cat was by my side, falling asleep, and in this moment, everything was right. Then, all of a sudden, my cat's ears perked up, and he started staring into the dark hallway outside of my room. That's when I heard it. A faint, but distinct mumbling that sounded like a man muttering. At first, I was just confused. I was trying to figure out what could possibly be making a noise like that. I was alone, so I figured it wasn't somebody talking. I decided to get up and leave my room to check and see if somehow the television had gotten turned on. It wasn't. That's when I started to get a little bit on edge. The muttering was a little louder now, and I pinpointed it to the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen, and I could make out a distinct voice. It was definitely somebody talking. I immediately reached into my cutlery drawer and pulled out a knife. I listened closer, and made out a couple of words. Standing, stairs, dark. I listened for the true origin of the noise, and realized it was coming from the other side of the basement door, which is in my kitchen. At this point, I'd like to say I called the police, or opened the door and defended myself. Anything, really. But I didn't. I froze. I was petrified, knowing someone was in my house, against my will, standing in a dark basement, muttering nonsense to themselves. But instead of doing the right thing and calling for help, I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I slowly crept towards the door. I was standing in front of the door with a knife, listening to this person talking to themselves, and I could finally hear what they were saying. I'll never forget it. He was narrating himself, describing his thoughts, surroundings, plans, etc. Here's where I listened in. I'm building some suspense. As I stand in the darkness, I tremble at the thought of plunging my knife into his back. So much meat. Gotta be fast, though. I begin to wonder if I've been noticed. I hope so. I love the thought of him realizing his inevitable end. I'm experienced. He can't defend himself against me. I stood there, listening to the ramblings of this man, and wondering just what kind of monster was on the other side of this door. He sounded younger, probably Caucasian. He spoke so fast, it almost sounded impossible. He sounded absolutely out of his mind, or maybe even coked up. As these thoughts went through my head, I heard a stirring behind the door, as if he were raising his hands in the air and lowering them in a jumping jack motion. But he wasn't jumping. I heard, "Ah, he is here. I've been noticed. What should I do from here? Maybe now is the time to strike. Surely he will call the police soon. Yes, now is the time." I reached for the door. As that happened, I noticed the knob was turning. The door had a bolt latch on it, though. As he pushed against the door, the latch prevented it from opening. He pushed against it several times, each time with more force. After about the 5th attempt, he stopped. Things were quiet for a moment, but then he spoke again. "Drats. Locked. There's only one thing to do. I will run down the stairs, out the basement, and through the door. I will run down the stairs." As he finished the last sentence, I heard extremely fast footsteps running down the stairs, and then followed by a loud crash. He had broken through the cellar doors. At this point, I realized I didn't have long before this lunatic was in my house. I ran into my bathroom and locked the door. I heard some extremely loud bangs at my back door, followed by what sounded like the scraping of a knife. My door was luckily locked, as sometimes I forgot to lock it. Not after this shit, though. I pulled out my cell phone and finally called the police. I sat in my bathroom for what felt like hours while I waited for the police to finally show up. When they did, it was too late. Whoever this was had already fled the scene. I gave them my statement. They looked around a bit, and after examining the place for evidence and finding none, they told me they'd be patrolling the area for the rest of the night, and they left. I went into my room where my cat was sleeping peacefully. I sat down, curled up under my blanket, and lied awake for the rest of the night. After this night, I decided I couldn't stay in that house anymore, and moved into a much smaller apartment, with no basement. I try not to think about this night much, but it sometimes creeps into my mind, especially on lonely nights. The most unnerving part to me is that when he broke through my cellar doors, they were locked. The door leading down into the basement was locked from the outside. There was also no signs of forced entry. That means that this man must have been in my house for a while without me knowing it. For how long, I will never know. This story was submitted by Zuv. I'm an easy target. I wear tight clothes, and I'm often mistaken for a girl. I was in McDonald's with my brother, who was a large MMA and rugby player. We were standing in line when I felt like I was being watched. I looked around and saw a man, who looked to be roughly in his 40s, just staring at me. So I ignored it and went and sat down with my food. I told my brother that a man was staring at me, and he told me to just ignore it. Then, that man sat down close to me. He would eat a little from time to time, but when he wasn't, he'd be staring at me, dead in the eyes. My brother told me to tell him if he started to stare at me again, but I didn't because I didn't want to create a fight between them. So, I just eat my food, and I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. I looked over, and he did not stop, even when I stared back. My brother asked me, "Is he staring?" I said, "No." Then I got uncomfortable and blurted out, "Yes." My brother turned his head over and said to him, "Are you all right?" The man nodded and continued staring. "Are you all right?" my brother said twice more. Every time, the man would nod and just continue staring. At times he would even lick his lips at me. I got annoyed and stood up to leave. As I did, I noticed that there were two girls, roughly 11 to 12 years old, next to him, apparently not knowing what he just did. He started talking to them, and their dad rushed over and stopped him. They left the same time as my brother and they were just as creeped out as me. I didn't know his intentions, and I'm glad it stayed that way. But I do wonder from time to time. This story was submitted by Hazzard Mason. I live in London, England, in a town just outside of the central city. My area is considered to be fairly nice, though it doesn't lack in drugs or murders or assaults, the same as the rest of London. I'll start by giving you a rough idea of the area surrounding my house. In my house there is an attic. The first floor has 3 rooms, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and the ground floor is 2 rooms, the kitchen and the living room. In my kitchen, I have my gaming set up, and immediately behind that is our back door, leading to our garden. Directly backed up to the garden is a large cemetery where druggies and homeless people live and hang out. So, one night I was home alone, as my parents and siblings were on a holiday, and I had just been released from the hospital, as I had had my tonsils out 3 days before they left. I was chilling on my PC, playing League of Legends, and listening to music absurdly loud through my headphones, oblivious to my surroundings. This was short-lived, however, as my dogs started to go berserk, as they normally do when they hear the druggies getting rowdy in the cemetery. So, I got up to let them into the garden to bark at the druggies for a while, as per routine at 2 a.m. But as I got up and turned around, I saw something that will haunt me for many years to come. One of the crackheads had vaulted my fence from the cemetery and was now at my back door, trying to get into my house, with the most demented look I have ever seen. His eyes were bloodshot, to the point where they were almost entirely red. Being a fairly aggressive teen, I started to yell at him in the deepest voice I could muster, but this only seemed to make him more persistent. Now, in my family, we don't like to get the police involved at all, so calling them was out of the question. I decided to run upstairs and grab my dad's Bowie knife. I took my dogs upstairs with me and closed them in the room. Then I heard my back door slam open. At this point, I am shitting myself, so I slowly move down the stairs, knife in hand, and yell, "I have a knife, and I'm not afraid to use it." I hear scuffling and feet heading to my garden, so I sprint towards him just to catch him hopping over my fence. I hear something clank onto the floor. I wait a few minutes before sprinting to the back of the garden, only to see a large hand axe sitting on the ground and 4 druggies sprinting through the cemetery into darkness. I don't know what he wanted, whether it was money for food or for drugs, but I have never in my life been so grateful to own dogs. I just hope this druggie and his friends never come back, and do not try to enter another house, or possibly harm anyone else. In truth, I hope they overdose. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. So, I know a lot of you caught my Halloween special, some of you it confused, others caught the joke. Yes, I am your maker as well as fear your maker. I wanted to add a little special twist to my Halloween special, like I said, to keep it fresh. So, yeah, that's why they sounded so similar. So, I know most of you understood that, but a couple of you were confused, so I just wanted to make that clear, that I am your maker and fear your maker. Fear your maker is more for paranormal, aliens, creepypastas, pretty much anything that I don't think fits on this channel currently. I do want to thank everyone who joined me on my live stream this weekend. It was kind of impromptu, so next time I'll make sure I put a notice. A big thanks to Corpse Husband and King Spook, who also showed up to say hi. I had a lot of fun chatting with everyone, and if you're interested in seeing another one, make sure you let me know down in the comments below. I hope all of you had a fun and safe Halloween, and once again, thank you very much for all the submissions. And if you want to share your story, all the information will be in the description. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. And one other thing I forgot to mention, so for everyone sticking around who are my hardcore fans, I will be updating my About page within the next day or so, and I will be including an address to a P.O. box, so if you would like to write to me, feel free to. I know a lot of people wanted to. If you didn't want to, then just let it go in one ear and out the other, because it's no skin off my back. But yeah, for all those who want to write me, I will be updating it, so make sure you keep checking on that, and I will also let you know in the next video. By then it should be up.
Thanks again. Have a good one. I'll see you guys later. Have a good day, boy.
What the fuck is wrong with me, dude? Fucking cray cray.